The Justice and Legal segment on the Consider podcast is only concerned with calling all individuals to repentance. No matter which side of the bar one is on, the demand is for repentance in accordance with Amos 5:24. Let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. Nothing discussed should be considered legal advice. Want legal advice? Pay a lawyer. Want justice? Pray to the holy God. As the living God recorded in Deuteronomy 16:20, all must follow justice and justice alone. The listener assumes all responsibility for their actions or refusal to act in accordance with justice and justice alone. Because the legal system hides their corrupt deeds in darkness, any discussion is fraught with inadequate information. The listener should keep in mind that the news media only communicates what sells. Finally, make note that the vast majority of what is called legal is in fact not lawful. The Consider podcast, examining today's wisdom, madness, and folly. www.consider.info.
Let us consider a little deeper the dog and pony show known as jury duty.
Welcome to the Consider podcast, where the whole gospel message is used to examine today's wisdom, folly, and madness. Acts 5:20. Go, stand, and speak to the people in the temple the whole message of this life. Join the hosts Timothy and Jacob as they pick up their cross to follow Jesus, as we pray that God enlightens the mind according to verse 25 of Ecclesiastes chapter 7. So, I turned my mind to understand, to investigate and to search out wisdom and the scheme of things, and to understand the stupidity of wickedness and the madness of folly. Ecclesiastes 7:25. The Consider podcast, examining today's wisdom, folly, and madness with the whole gospel. www.consider.info.
How's it going, Jacob?
It's going good.
What's your favorite snack food? Your like all-time top comfort snack food that's probably not good for you snack food.
A snack food or just like dessert?
I'll take your pick. We're not on court testimony type level yet.
Classic chocolate chip cookies. I'll go for a classic homemade chocolate chip cookies, but I'm picky.
Does it have to be burnt around the edges, or are you more of a like...
My wife makes them how I like them.
Okay, well, then I'm not going to venture into that.
Well, it's hard to describe other than I know what I like.
Well, chocolate chip cookies aren't my favorite, but my favorites are the ones, where they're kind of blackened around the edges. My wife, when she obviously was alive kind of thing, used to overcook a few just for me because most people don't like that. So, you can go into some psychoanalysis.
Man,
can you believe it is snowing out there?
It is pretty crazy.
That
Spring
is
snow.
Bizarre, really. Lovely. Almost want to stop and, couldn't go play in it. All right, snacks. We're talking about snacks. If you were on trial and you were found guilty, whether you're actually guilty or not, that's a whole nother topic. That's kind of what we're talking about. But you're found guilty, right?
Okay.
The judge is going to sentence you.
Yes.
When would be the best time for you to receive your sentence?
When's the best time?
Or, conversely, when would be the worst time to receive your judgment?
I don't know. The way they do it now is you're found guilty, you're hauled away, and then you come back for your sentencing trial, I believe it would be called.
It's not a trial, but you're sentencing.
Yeah, you're
court,
hearing. But it's two separate things. They split it up.
Oh yeah, they split it up. So I don't know if you're doing your usual delay ask questions or not. This is
but if I'm
it's really pretty simple.
If I'm
what
guilty,
time of the day would you want that judge to sentence you?
Physically, time of the day?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I'm guilty. I'm going to be pretty distraught.
Wrong-o, turkey breath. You are totally wrong.
Okay.
They have done studies. Judges are much more lenient right after they've had a snack.
Oh, okay.
It's like studies out there everywhere.
Okay, sure.
No, to be lenient right after they've had and they have an hour and a half lunch break, folks, by the way. An hour and a half lunch break.
So specifically lunch, not snack.
No, snack time or lunchtime.
Okay.
Doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Anytime after they've had their belly full, whether it be their chocolate chip cookies or snack or whatever, or even their lunch little break, judges are far more likely to be lenient and cooperative. As the day progresses after lunch, as you near the time when they want to go home, and I think most of them are like 3 o'clock. But anyway, 3 to 5, they want to go home. They want their dinner meal. That is the worst time. The studies show you almost get nothing. In terms of leniency,
Sure.
It's like 0 right after lunch wears off. So snacks is where it's at with these judges. So go ahead and play the snack clip here to let me put this in perspective. And we're going to look at Philippians chapter 3, right around verse 18.
You've heard of snap judgments. Well, watch out for snack judgment. Want mercy from the court? Wait until after lunch. Judges strike guilty more often before snack time. Judges strike guilty more often before lunch break. Judges strike guilty more often before dinner time. After snack, you ask? After lunch? You languish to know? Judges are more lenient after their little snacks. Judges are more lenient after their hour-and-a-half lunches. Conclusion, Philippians 3:18-19. Many live as enemies of the cross of Christ. Their God is their stomach, and their glory is their shame. Is it justice or just us? The Consider Podcast. www.consider.info, where the rubber meets the road.
Let's look at Philippians 3:18 verse through 19. A little bit more detail there, Jacob. You want to go ahead and read those two verses?
Philippians 3:18
and 19.
18, 19. For as I have often told you before, and now say again, even with tears, many live as enemies of the cross of Christ. Their destiny is destruction, their God is their stomach, and their glory is in their shame. Their mind is on earthly things.
Their God is their stomach. Jurors, they judge with their flesh, whatever they feel like on the outside. Whereas your judges, it has to do with their stomach. They have their little special social clubs, and in fact, they get discounts. They're all, it's all kind of in the know. It's a good old boys and girls club kind of routine. It's just clear from the facts and from the stats. Now, can you get people to argue the facts and the stats? Of course. But it's just pretty obvious that if you want some leniency from a judge, right after lunch is the time to happen, or even a good, decent snack would take place. Because why? Their God is their stomach, and they refuse to repent. What do you think, Jacob? Does that all sound valid? Am I way off, like on the end of the earth kind of routine?
Oh, no, I think it sounds valid.
Or more like pirate guidelines? I think everybody's familiar with pirate guidelines anymore.
I think, generally speaking, people's mood is always better after their little tummies are full.
All right, good. So I got you lured into that. We're in agreement here, right?
Okay, yeah.
All right, I'm going to go a little bit deeper. And this one's going to shoot me in the foot. So let's play that little warning clip, because this is going to get offensive to some. Let's just put it that way, more so than others. Go ahead.
The noise ahead is offensive. Double offensive. Watch the host dance as he shoots himself in the foot. Galatians 4:16. Have I now become your enemy by telling you the truth? The Consider Podcast. www.consider.info, where the rubber meets the road.
It's common knowledge. I mean, people see that in their own homes, right? If dad's had a big meal and you need to approach him for something. I mean, we all pick and choose those times when mom, dad, brother, sister who are in a good mood, right? I mean, we make jokes about that fact. So we're clearly a people, judges or whatever, are influenced by their belly, how full it is, how much they want to go home or what they want to do. They're just fleshly, worldly, because it takes the cross of Christ for all of us to get past those kind of things where belly doesn't mean anything, where flesh doesn't mean anything, our emotions don't mean anything. That's just God has to begin that process of putting us to death in order that we might really make true judgments. All right, that said. So is it really true that snacks affect our life, Jacob?
Do snacks? Yeah, snacks certainly affect our life.
Could you give me one big scripture that proves that without a shadow of a doubt, at least among those who know Jesus, that this is a fact?
Jacob and Esau, and he wanted the lentil soup and he sold his birthright.
That's a good one. I go further back to Genesis when Eve came in and she did the cooking. say, here's the fruit. I made the mistake one time in a sermon calling it an apple. Oh, I got in trouble because it's not really necessarily an apple. It just says fruit.
Yeah.
But I'm not bitter. That's just how it goes. Anyway, we are influenced by food. That's how we fell in the Garden of Eden. So I'm not going to try and prove this to secular people, but it's very clear even in society. If the judge is happy, you're going to be more happy, and so on, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's go on a little bit forward. We've talked about when jury duty, they have a whole list of questions. We're eventually going to dive into that, but they want to know, what news you watch, where your friends are, what you do, all kinds of stuff. You kind of have to full disclosure everything you are just to get on the jury pool, right?
Correct.
Well, it's about time we have full disclosure on judges and prosecutors. I know I had emailed or contacted King County prosecutors going, yeah, can I get the drug test for the prosecutors? We don't do drug tests. We don't do drug tests on judges. How come they don't have to live by the minimum basic standards that we all live with? That should be just random drug tests. We should know whether they're on counseling. Are they taking prescription drugs for antidepressants, right? Wouldn't that seem reasonable and logic?
It would seem very reasonable.
Are they alcoholics? Are they diabetics? Or we could just go down the line, right?
Correct.
Well, here's the part where I'm going to shoot myself in the foot, but it's factual as it can be. And why no woman is really qualified to be a judge or a prosecutor. Because their mind is set in a more emotional place than a man. Is that not a fact, Jacob?
That is correct.
When a fetus is in the womb and the hormones are flowing and it's going toward being a female, the brain takes on a different function, a different way that it works, correct?
Correct.
Than the male. When the male grows up and until we start messing with it, everybody has, and this isn't to look down on a woman, it's to say that we're each made different. So why do you think our trials are becoming more and more about emotional issues than the actual facts of a trial?
I think the other statistical fact is that the America as a whole, and yes, I will lump in the judicial system and the powers that be, are all becoming more feminine.
Correct.
Everybody. Masculinity is gone.
And not only that, they're anti-male.
Correct. They're anti-male. You should not be masculine. You should not be a man. You should be emotional like us, a.k.a. women.
So every judge should have to state, is it her time of the month? There's been no studies on that. How does that affect? We know that anyone who has daughters or raised daughters knows when it's their time of the month. Do they not know?
Yeah.
The whole household knows. They know. The women know. Their body goes through all kinds of biological changes. What about menopause or just normal fluctuations up and down that are going on? That's just basic biology and facts. And so women jurors, women judges, by nature, are more emotionally driven, and you'd want it that way. Again, this is a positive thing. I know there's a lot of negative stuff, but you want a mother who mothers their children, right? The sympathy. Go ahead.
Well, it is positive if you're actually going to be a mother. That's a totally separate sort of issue, of course, which is in America at an alarming rate. The women are all working and have careers, and no one's actually raising your child. You're turning them over to daycares, the public school system. Anyway, so it's anyways. I'm throwing that in there because
no, that's huge.
Because but you know what I mean? Because women aren't raising their kids. Somebody else is raising their kids. But yes, you want them to be emotional because the emotions are there to help raise the kids in that capacity.
Correct. And then you need the husband and the man in the house who brings in a logical, they complement each other. That's supposed to be what's going on. And that's where love between a man and a woman takes place. There's an appreciation that we're not made the same. And I wouldn't want to marry me. Let's just put it that way. Don't worry, girls. I'm not on the market, so you're safe. So we get women one judge goes, I wanted to be a judge or a lawyer since I was 8 years old, which means then she sacrificed being a mother. And so all of those emotions, and if she dropped her kids off at daycare, that means she's sacrificing her children for the sake of her career. There's not even the basis of what would be called motherly love. And all of that emotion has gotten twisted up and perverted around and brought into the courtroom which has nothing to do with facts of a crime. And that's why you find this constant emotion. Oh, they were a good person, or they're this person, or this harm was done. That's all emotional baggage junk that never allows you to actually get to the truth of the matter. I can remember many times the father comes in, he's more, he's going to discipline the child. He wants the facts. And the mother's not over here debating the facts normally. But he's a child. He's only 3. He's only 4. Is naturally defensive for the child, whether it's based on reason or logic or not. And I'm not saying they don't balance each other, but when you get a courtroom where you've got women prosecutors, women on the jury, I mean, the case we went through, it wasn't, the jury themselves stated, didn't have anything to do with the facts, didn't have anything to do with this over here. It had to do with that the accuser happened to baby talk like a 10-year-old on the stand. Those are all motherly instincts that have nothing to do with make judgments within a courtroom. And that's one reason among many reasons. Is that to say that men were perfect? No, there's been plenty of injustice coming down through the ages. But what we're seeing now is a huge influx and increase. Just look at the way all that's going on in the United States. Look at the corruption that's going on. That's because it's a feminization of the judicial process. Any comments on that now that I've shot myself in the foot?
No.
Anything you want to add before we're going to play Jan's interview again, if she's the one that heard about the dog and pony show. So I want to go through that a little bit here and there and kind of jump in here and there. Anything, though, that before you want to go with anything else, Jacob?
No.
I do. Let's go ahead and play No Roman Soldier, and let's discuss that for just a minute.
Okay.
Remember, no Roman soldier at the crucifixion repented. Remember, no governing authority repented of killing court evidence. Remember, no prison guard who whipped Jesus repented. Do remember, it was a criminal crucified next to Jesus on the cross that repented. Luke 23:41. The criminal declared, I am punished justly, getting what my crimes deserve. Remember me, Jesus. The Consider Podcast. www.consider.info. Where the rubber meets the road.
I'm going to tie that bumper with this next one. Jacob, go ahead and play Did Not Say.
What did Jesus not say? Jesus did not say support your local police. Jesus did not say remember law and order. Jesus did not say lock the scum of the earth up. What Jesus did say is, I was a stranger and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison and you did not look after me. Matthew 25:43. Submit to governing authorities, but look after those in prison. The Consider Podcast. www.consider.info. Where the rubber meets the road.
Jacob, you ever been in a Christian bookstore and found a book on jury duty?
No.
Really? Not one?
No.
Think about the. I did the same thing. And so I went out and started searching the web, see if I could find a book, because I want to make sure it's like, I've never, ever one time seen a book on jury duty for Christians. How can that possibly be? Is there not so much throughout all of Scripture that God is a God of justice?
Yes.
That he's coming with justice.
Yes.
That every prosecutor and judge, bailiff, minion that works there should be very afraid about working within the justice system. You really kind of have to be almost a fool about your soul to even go, I want to be a policeman, or I want to be working in the judicial system, really. You want to stand before God and say, these were all of my judgments, what I did. But anyway, back to my original point. There is not, as I could not find a single book on jury duty for Christians. Now think about that. What are the ramifications? What does that tell us, Jacob?
Well, and only because I don't even know if there's any secular books like how to be a good juror. Are those out there?
There are a few. They
Okay.
looked the covers looked really old, and they look self-published.
Yeah.
Speaking from experience, they weren't quality books.
Yeah.
And let me add a little warning here, please. No one to a lawyer go write a book on jury duty for Christians. You don't have the right perspective. Don't do it. Don't do it. If you work within the legal system, you are not qualified to write a book on jury duty and justice for Christians. So please don't do that. Fortunately or unfortunately, depends how you look at it. God hasn't called me to write a book on it, but it's just not out there. It goes back to, what did Jesus say? He didn't say support law and order. He didn't say, go visit a prosecutor or visit your local police station or vote conservative values. What did Jesus say, Jacob?
Well, now I'm thinking of the two bumpers because they were
that's
mixed.
right.
Well,
Go visit those in prison.
correct.
That's who you're supposed to look at. Now, the other bumper, did any of the Roman soldiers who would have been the police at the time repent and crucifying Jesus?
Okay, none of them, definitely, there's no documentation that they repented. There's only would it be an omission? After he died, the soldier says, surely this was the Son of God, or something very close to that.
They acknowledged that
I know,
fact.
and I'm
but
just throwing that
repenting
out
is
there.
a difference. You don't hear him go on and go, man, I can't believe what I did. Now it could be built in.
No. So, and that's the only question. Absolutely, you are correct. In Scripture, there is no they repented.
There is no record.
There's no record.
There's no record. I'm not.
Hopefully, maybe that one. There's only one record of one soldier. So even if we were to hypothesize or hope that the one soldier that said that did go repent, but that's still one out of a lot that were there.
Correct. And again, Scripture is not recording that they actually repented.
Correct.
Well, what's really messing this up is Hollywood has all of its versions of somebody repenting who there's no record of them repenting. The movie The Robe is based on that kind of concept.
Oh, yes, that's true.
So we get this in our head that surely they repented. You have to kind of almost say, if there was a Roman soldier or one of the Pharisees or the Sadducees or somebody that actually repented of condemning Jesus, you would have thought that would have been recorded. Now, am I totally discounting that it wasn't? No, that's not what I'm saying. But
your point is still valid, even with my little maybe there was one guy who did. The point is still valid, though, even if that was the case. Even if you were fine, Hollywood, you can have your one guy who repented.
Correct. You can go with that. Either way. One way to word it is, God didn't consider it significant to put in there, but he did put Jesus to say, visit me in prison.
Correct.
And by the way, I've tried to get into prisons with the gospel and never had much success very long, because you know why, Jacob?
They probably weren't inviting you in.
Well, they wouldn't let me in.
Okay.
But guess who wouldn't let me in?
Who wouldn't let you in?
The Christian pastors that worked in the prison.
Sure, yeah, they're like,
so that was the first set of
we don't
options.
Really like you.
Yeah, but can you imagine some warden give me a call, say, yeah, we really need the full gospel that shows no favoritism to guard or prisoners or anybody else. Can you come in here and lay out the whole gospel, lay it out? It's not going to happen. No. Now I'm really deviating. All right, any comments where we kind of dive a little bit into Jan's interview concerning jury duty being a dog and pony show?
No.
Remember I was talking about that experiment. It's called the authoritative experience. Where they take a group of people. I'll see if I can explain it. We're going to play a clip here in a minute. It's a little bit long, but people need to really listen to understand what goes on. This has been documented over and over again. It would say I'm a psychologist. I bring somebody in, and it's all play acting on one side. What happens is there's a volunteer sitting at a panel, and on the panel's say 30 different buttons, and each button goes up higher in terms of voltage. In another room is an individual that works for me, and every time a button gets flipped, you kind of scream equal to the voltage of the button. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
What I do as a psychologist is I stand there, say, with a clipboard or a white jacket, or I'm the official, the authority in it, and the volunteer that's sitting here in front of the buttons doesn't know this is going on, but you've been told every time they go a little bit higher with the voltage, you scream louder. And what they discovered is, as long as the authority figure was there saying, Oh no, go ahead. Trust me. Go up to the next button. Go next. Most of people would wind up going to the extreme level where the guy is screaming in the other room going, "No, stop, stop, stop." This video I'm going to play is very mild compared to actually what took place. If you listen to it or watch or anything, the people are like screaming in the other room. Of course, the voltage isn't going up. It's all play acting. And I believe even at some point, the person in the other room that's doing the screaming just actually shuts up as if he died, and the authority figure is still saying, yeah, keep going, and the person keeps going and keeps going. This is such a famous story that when I was in college for a short period of time, didn't graduate, that's a whole different sub-story. This experiment's like repeated all the time in every semester because it's one of the few verifiable things you can do that's just solid. It came out of the World War II where, the Nazis got people to do all kinds of horrendous things. So there was this interest in study in why would people do this and how far would they go? Why this is important is, and I'll say Seattle, King County prosecutors, Washington State are some of the most manipulative jury aspects going on. But I say it with qualification because it's probably true in every state. And if you look at what certain political people are going through, it's very clear that jury manipulation is a very high point. The next step is just literally just lynch mob type territory. Anything before we actually play this video clip, Jacob?
No.
All right, go ahead. And it's called the Milgram Experiment. And let's go ahead and listen to this or watch it if you've got video.
Are ordinary people able to do terrible things? And if so, how many would give a strong electric shock to an innocent other just because they are following an order? To answer these questions, we can look at the controversial work of a man who just wanted to find answers to his family's horrific past. In 1961, Stanley Milgram, a young psychologist, wanted to find out how ordinary citizens were able to commit acts of unspeakable evil in Nazi Germany. His theory: some people do horrific things because they obey even the most wicked leaders. To test his theory, Milgram designed a clever experiment that changed our understanding of human behavior forever. The Milgram experiment involved 3 people: an authority, called the experimenter, who was dressed in a lab coat to appear powerful, a volunteer, who was assigned to be the teacher, and a victim, the so-called student. The teacher was the test subject, whereas the experimenter and student were both actors. Following orders, the teacher would test a student who was sitting in another room by asking them questions. For every wrong answer, the experimenter would ask the teacher to inflict an electric shock, up to a life-threatening 450 volts. Before he began, Milgram asked his colleagues what they expected the outcome to be. Almost all of them agreed that only a few of the volunteers would obey and inflict electric shocks on innocent others. What do you think? Would anyone administer shocks higher than 300 volts? Milgram then advertised his experiment as a study on memory and learning at the campus of Yale University. People signed up without any idea of what they were really getting themselves into. The experiment began with the volunteers meeting the other participants. The volunteers then pulled a card to draw their role. Little did they know that they could only draw the teacher. Next, they would be given a sample of a light electric shock in order to experience firsthand what the others would have to go through. To start, the experimenter and the teacher were seated in one room, and the student was strapped to a chair in an adjacent room. The teacher and student were able to communicate, but not see each other. The experimenter then gave the teacher a list of questions. The teacher would then read out the questions, and the student would press a button to indicate a response. For every false answer, the teacher would administer a shock, starting at 15 volts and increasing in 15-volt increments up to 450. What the teacher didn't know was that the student didn't actually receive any shocks. Instead, a tape recorder was used to play various responses. In the beginning, the teacher would hear protest or bangs against the wall. If shocks would increase, the reactions would become louder, and in case someone would go all the way, the learner would fall silent. In case the teacher became hesitant and asked to stop, the experimenter would resort to the following 4 prompts. First, he would say, please continue. If that was unsuccessful, he would go on with, the experiment requires that you continue. Then, it is absolutely essential that you continue. And lastly, you have no other choice. You must go on. Along the way, the volunteers displayed signs of extreme tension, such as sweating, trembling, and even uncontrollable laughing fits. The experiment would be stopped only after all 4 prompts had been used, or the maximum voltage of 450 volts had been given 3 times. Milgram found that, of all participants, 100% gave at least 300 volts, and 65% went all the way to 450 volts. The experiment was later criticized for being unethical, because it deceived innocent people into performing what seemed to be terrible acts of violence. However, his experiment was successfully replicated many times, involving different populations and leading to similar findings. Milgram himself left us with this to think about. It may be that we are puppets controlled by the strings of society. But at least we are puppets with perception, with awareness, and perhaps our awareness is the first step to our liberation. What do you think? Would you follow or question the orders if you were one of Milgram's participants? And what can we as a society teach future generations to help prevent horrific acts that can happen when ordinary people blindly follow an authority? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Think my comments would mean anything, Jacob?
What do you mean, your comments?
Well, she asked for comments.
Oh, yeah.
Change society.
You know, I think you had briefly mentioned that when you were in college, which would be quite a number of years ago, that there's no way they're even going over this experiment in college today.
Well, correct. I mean, it's common knowledge. No, they're studied because it looks official. And, you know, if somebody wants to do a project in psychology class,
I
replicate
guess,
it.
Maybe. I'd still be shocked.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
I would wager that most, they don't even probably, I mean, even just by watching the video, right? Even to anybody, you would be like, whoa, that's crazy. Whoa, that's interesting.
Yep.
And I don't know. I'm still shocked if any college nowadays even has that. The colleges nowadays, it would all be about LGBTQ plus experiments and all sorts of weird stuff.
Not disagreeing with you. Let me just kind of add to that a little bit. No. They're aware of this, and they use it to manipulate juries.
Correct.
So back then, they looked at this and go, this is bad. How can we change society? How can we keep from becoming Nazis? Yep. Well, the answer to that is you can't. That's the quick answer.
Sure.
Without Jesus Christ, it's not going to happen. But on the flip side, Mark Larson was a prosecutor. He was an expert in eyewitness testimony, meaning he wasn't using that to discern who was truth and who was lying. He was using it to figure out how to get that witness to say what he wanted them to say on the stand. Everything about that's been proven. So they're all aware of this. In fact, as we look at the King County prosecutors' jury selection process, they're playing to this. They're fine. You notice in the study, he said 65% of the people went to 450 volts, right?
So they killed somebody.
Correct.
Yeah.
But now switch that up to jury duty, meaning you're going to get rid of the other 40% or 45% that actually would not flip the button.
Correct.
So the goal of the judge and the goal of the prosecutor and the system itself is to make sure those that wouldn't do it, in fact, 100% went to 300 volts. So
correct.
You get rid of those people, and you wind up with a jury pool of 95% of the people that will follow the authorities and go all the way up the line. You can't even get in.
Correct.
That's why this is important. They have refined the corruption so that it's deep-seated, so you get a bunch of emotional jurors sitting there feeding off whatever the prosecution and the judge is in line, believe me, with the prosecutor. There's no separation going on. They may be a little slyer about it, but that they're not for your defense. Even in this, there's this Auburn. Is it Auburn Police? Jeff Nelson, Jacob?
Yeah, I think it's Auburn.
There's, just to give you an example how anti-defense and anti-truth judges are, he had a lot of tattoos on his body, and a lot of policemen do. The prosecution, of course, wanted to introduce a couple, 7, 8, 10, I don't know, maybe all of the tattoos to demonstrate what he was thinking when he overreached supposedly his authority and shot somebody, right? So they go, oh, look, he's got a tattoo. It's got this saying on there. So he's a killer when he gets up in the morning, and he's a killer on the beat, and he's going to pull the gun and he's going to kill because the tattoo, it just shows what is in mind. That's what they want to play.
Yes.
And only a literal, dumbed down, authoritative, manipulated jury pool will go, oh, well, yeah, you can read minds by looking at tattoos. Never mind the fact that tattoos are legal and shouldn't even be brought into a courtroom, but it's a far stretch to go from there to a mindset without any other proof of evidence. I don't want to go too far into that. Here's what happened. The defense, of course, objected to the fact that the judge was going to release these tattoos out to the public. I was also objecting to the fact that the
prosecutors wanted to release it to the jury.
That's right.
That's what they were after. They wanted to bring it in as evidence, and the defense objects.
That's correct. The judge was agreeing. So then, okay, the reason I'm getting, because it gets kind of muddled up, meaning the judge is going back and forth. I don't know whether I want to allow it in the courtroom for the jury. So the next best thing for the prosecution is to get it released out into the public. Give it to the news media. Are you following me? Did I make myself clear on that?
Yeah, well, I think, she was going back and forth, and then she it's almost like she went down the middle, because I don't think the jurors were allowed to see it, but she said it could be released to the public.
Yeah, you're getting to my point. She didn't go down the middle. She still sided with the prosecution.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
In other words, logic was, no, I'm not going to let the jury base this case on tattoos. This is about the facts of, did he do it or did he not do it? Whether he had a tattoo or didn't have a tattoo. He could have changed his attitude when he was 16 when he got the tattoo. It's a whole mucky mire of emotions. So she was actually agreeing with the defense and saying, the jury shouldn't see this, right?
Correct.
Then it shifted to, well, we wanted to be released to the public. Well, naturally, the prosecution wanted that. The judge said that the defense dropped its opposition to it being released to the newspapers and the news media. Therefore, she was releasing it to the news media in spite of the fact that it is inflammatory type evidence that would not be brought into the courtroom. By default, she should be ensuring the rights of the accused. If it's legal, then it shouldn't be released to the news media.
Correct. Yeah, if you're not going to show it to the jurors, then you shouldn't show it to anybody.
That is correct.
It shouldn't be released.
And she's even agreeing with the defense up front, saying, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to bring this in the courtroom. I see your point. I think there was even some agreement that really I shouldn't release it to the public, right? I shouldn't put it out for news media. But the defense drops its objection, and so the result, the naked response, so to speak, of the judge is to go ahead and give the prosecution what it wants instead of saying, no, the basic rights, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, those kinds of things apply by default in this courtroom. Therefore, they're not even going to go out in public. Instead, she did a sleight of hand where she goes, well, because the defense dropped their objection, I'm going to go ahead and release it to the news media. Did I explain that clear enough?
Yeah.
So I want to emphasize that again. By default, every judge I shouldn't have to pay a lawyer to babysit the prosecution. It didn't matter. I can tell you why the defense keeps dropping their objections, because this is not the first time they've done that. Why do you think the defense has dropped? Like, there's been 2 or 3 issues come up, and eventually the defense just drops its objection. Do you know why, Jacob?
I'm only guessing. I think probably because they're so busy, you only have so much energy, and so for the thing that's blatantly in their face at that moment was don't release it to the jury. So they fight, and the judge agrees to that portion of it. So then you're just tired and worn out, and you don't have enough money to bill enough hours. So then this other stuff slips through.
Well, you actually got to it. It all had to do with money.
Sure.
everything about the defense. If anybody's ever been
that's
in trouble,
billable hours. You're going to be billing.
Well, I'm not trying to blame the defense, but that's a little bit different story. The point I'm saying is that the defense, everything they do comes down to, do we have the money to do it or not?
Correct. Yeah, because you're billing the client.
You're billing the client. That's right.
If you're Trump and you're a millionaire, you can hire, endless lawyers, really. He's got the money. But if you're just a regular...
how they're burying him. So just apply that to the average Joe, they know.
That's what I mean. Like, Trump barely has a shot, right? Like, it's still a 50-50. And he's like, I don't know if he's a billionaire. He has, they say he literally has like $200 million cash just laying around in the bank accounts.
Correct.
And it's actually more than that. So anyways, but yeah, to your point, which is,
All right, so when we went through what we went through and experienced the corruption within Seattle King County courts, everything on the defense side had to do with time and money. The longer that we went out, the more money we had to spend, and the faster we became broke, which was exactly what the prosecution and the judge wanted. They just wanted to bust you financially. There would have been a ton of things that could have been objected to, that we possibly could have won on if we had the cash. In fact, it probably wouldn't go to trial. We'd have had enough private investigators that actually would have done what Detective McCall was supposed to do and go to the house and examine and see that the crime was impossible. But money was in short supply, and King County prosecutors were after to destroy Wine Press Publishing, Sound Doctrine Church, and run us out of town. And that's exactly what happened. If anybody thinks I'm like just blowing smoke, there's testimony to this fact. You have Detective McCall at the very beginning of his grooming situation and his hate crime, emailing King County prosecutors who had already been talking to a bunch of people and already been talking to Grant McCall, saying, the key to winning this case or bringing down these people is to go after the church. That's what all of this was about. So you had this emotional feel-good situation going on and a jury pool that was introduced to all these feelings about religion with zero evidence presented by the prosecution that the crime had even happened or that it could have happened. I don't want to go too far off in it. So you get this authoritative going on. So the reason the defense and the prosecution, look, if you're on a jury pool and you're sitting there and you're smart enough to get in there to throw justice into the system, just know that on a flat-out minimum level, the prosecutors and the judge are fully corrupt, and their only goal is to bankrupt you either financially or emotionally so that you do not have the strength and the energy to put up a defense. Forget this notion about a vigorous defense. It doesn't happen. They are wearing you down so that you cannot defend yourself. So by the time you get before an emotional, dumbed-down jury pool, you do look like a babbling idiot. It doesn't know what's going on. You're just kind of flat out. In fact, we pushed it along and we drove this trial as fast as we could, but everybody was massively wore out when we got there, except, of course, the prosecution. They have unlimited funds. They've got secretaries. They've got nonprofit groups. They've got everybody and their brother on a social scale going on. Plus, of course, it was a white male Christian. It was a minority judge. It was a minority girl that could do the false accusations on Grant McCall, and his co-conspirator knew exactly who to groom. Add that into the Milgram experiment where the authorities come in and go, oh, you're here for jury to the, I got to bring up one other point before we press on. Anything before I go any further?
No.
There's a central theme that has been exposed. All sinners have a pattern. Sin makes us stupid, and so we just kind of operate like a dog or a cat or whatever we are. Only spiritual people that are being crucified have a dynamic personality kind of all over the place because they're being made and formed into the image of Jesus Christ. You never quite know what they're going to be or can be or should do or whatever else. I'm not talking crazy stuff. I'm just meaning they are outside the box of what most people are trapped in because, again, sin makes you absolutely stupid and just a single childlike pattern. Okay, so there's a pattern that happens in these juries. You'll often hear them come out and go, let me pause here for effect so that people can let this sink in, and they'll say something to the effect of, well, I knew this was very important. A lot of lives would be affected by this. they're all puffed up. They're like the prosecution. They're like the judge. They're a part of the system. They're the clipboard people. They've got the white robes on. They're pushing the buttons. They're supporting people. And what they do is of significance. A lot of lives are affected. They're going to change society. It's all this emotional cause, not, no longer. Make sense, Jacob?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
They ought to hang the posters. I have the four types of juror posters. They should hang that in the lobby as people come in to do jury duty. Or how about, the old black and white movie, 12 Angry Men?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just 12 support groups for social causes. They don't allow anyone remotely with independent thinking to get in on the jury pool. We're pushing the time envelope, but let's begin to play Jan's testimony, and then I want to dive in a little bit deeper on some of her basic points. I probably need to explain who Jan is, because actually for those that know God, this is a praiseworthy situation. Jan was a part of the hate crime. She was the accountant at Wine Press Publishing. She went through the full-on corruption of the Unicall Police and King County prosecutors. And by the way, they refused to repent, even though we've proven everything they accused us of being wrong. Jan was highly involved, experienced the pain and suffering. She lost all her worldly goods, go on and so forth. She just happened years later to be called to jury duty and wound up being on the case where the prosecutor called it a dog and pony show. I'm not, if you're in Jesus Christ, you know what's going on. You understand what I'm saying. This is out of the norm. I don't know what the odds would be if you calculated it, but there it is. So that's who Jan is.
We're here to talk about your experience with jury duty, because I myself have never been on a jury. I've never been inside the courtrooms where all this stuff goes down. So today we're recording this on April the 7th, 2024. And Jan, first take me back to just a few of the specific details. What day did your experience happen on?
Well, mine was back in 2016.
Okay. So
I was there October 17th, 18th, and 20th, 3 days.
Oh, okay.
Jacob, let me stop you there just a minute. I'm going to interrupt, and don't feel like you got to pick up the same spot. Do you have the play Prosecutor Seawall video handy there? Because let's remind people, what happened is a prosecutor, when she was at jury duty, flat out stated the obvious, that this is a dog and pony show. So we have confirmation from the prosecutor's office, King County prosecutors, judges, that you being selected for jury duty, you are part of a dog and pony show. So understand clearly, they're already looking down with you with contempt. Like, we can manipulate you, we can bring you in, and they can. They can. I'm not arguing the point. So you're part of the dog and pony show if you make it, unless you're so shrewd and smart to get in and do justice. And, based on the questions that we're going to look at and what she went through, that would almost be impossible. You'd really have to compromise who you are. Did you find that clip?
Jury selection. October 2006, Washington State. Seattle King County prosecutors, courtroom 4G. Prosecutor Paul Sewell. Have you been selected for jury duty in the past? Then you have been through this dog and pony show before. The Consider podcast, examining today's madness, folly, and wisdom. www.consider.info.
Okay, this is the overshadow of what we're talking about. So let's continue on listening to her, and then I'll just jump in and interrupt.
Of the specific details, what day did your experience happen on?
Well, mine was back in 2016.
Okay. So
I was there October 17th, 18th, and 20th, 3 days.
Oh, okay. And so tell me, just go ahead and start the story. Okay, well, first, let's go ahead and back up real quick. So what happened? You get like a summons in the mail, right? Isn't that how jury duty all starts?
Yes, I got a summons in the mail saying that I would be summoned and to call, to find out when and where, which I did, and they told me to show up on October 17th for my first interview. And so on the 17th, I went to the courthouse, Superior Courthouse in Kent. And I was assigned, when I arrived, I went to the jury room. Oh my goodness, the jury room was crowded. There were so many people in there. People were talking on their phones, computers. I don't know, they had these puzzles set out all over the place for people to do on tables. There were vending machines. People were getting snacks. It was a very unsettling atmosphere. I mean,
okay, and this is
like,
I'm going to slow you down just a smidge, only because this is in King County, is my understanding, right? I don't know if you specified that.
Yes.
Okay, Jacob just paused it out a little bit. All right, let's picture the scene here. There's no structure about what's being happening. There's no education. There's nothing about the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. Full disclosure, again, drug tests for prosecutors and drug tests for judges, what your responsibility is. They would do well to even just play the movie 12 Angry Men instead of a bunch of puzzles around there to let people know how serious a thing they're marching into. But you understand, the state doesn't want you taking this serious.
Correct.
The state wants you taking them serious, which is different than actually taking the case serious. Yeah, I think you actually go on to say, I haven't actually listened to this thing word for word like we're doing now, and they were just being herded around like cattle. There's no direction. There's no order. At this point, it's just kind of a schizophrenic experience.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
King County in
County.
Kent, Washington.
Okay, yeah, that's the courthouse you went to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the rooms, they stick you in a room. So when you show up, you enter the courthouse doors, and you report to a specific room.
Yes, and they say, go to the jury room.
Oh, it's a room, the jury room, and it's chaotic.
Yes, it's very chaotic, and it's mainly chaotic. One of the main reasons is because nobody knows what they're supposed to do.
Oh, sure, yeah, nothing's clear.
Jacob, I'm going to pause you again, and I tend to give sinners and other people that unrepentant sinners, by the way, more credit, like what they're thinking and going on. So I may be imposing something like, and this is the danger of talking about it, because prosecutor or somebody's going, oh, that's a good idea. Why don't we do that? And so there's a real danger in exposing it, because they don't repent. It's not like they go, oh, well, this is wrong, we shouldn't do it. So when I say they're just being herded in and they're doing all this, and you're creating this chaotic type environment, that could be intentional in the sense of you have this confusion, then you bring in the judge and the prosecutor, and you start entering into or bringing things into order. You follow? So you're bringing in compliance.
Sure, they may be doing the chaotic, they may be creating the environment on purpose.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now that I said that, of course, like I said, it's a danger they might actually do it. Or this stuff was instituted so long. Because you got to be knowing that the colleges and the people involved have studied this thing long before it ever got to this point, and they have figured out how to manipulate this social justice or whatever is going on that the state wants. This is a highly manipulative environment. So you have chaos, you got kids, you got puzzles, you stuff going on. There's no order. There's no really thinking. You're confused before you ever go in to sit down and be quizzed by prosecutor and judges. Not a serious, helpful environment at all. In fact, one of the main goals here is to get rid of anybody who actually, what am I trying to say here? Anybody who, like, if you really take this serious and you are seriously minded and you really examine the state, my first reaction to walking in this environment would be, this is a dog and pony show. I'm not going to be part of it. It's too many hoops, too much going on. I'm being manipulated, and you leave. So by nature, a lot of the smartest, brightest people know not to even bother to show up. And this is just one more confirmation. Who in their right mind walks into this kind of stupidity and hangs around this kind of crowd and think, okay, I'm going to sit down with 12 other people and decide the fate of somebody?
Yeah, the whole environment. I mean, you there's already sort of this like disgust or distaste or like, I really just don't like this. Anybody who's a rational thinking person probably doesn't like the chaos, and then so it's going to quickly weed you out.
The only people you're left with are Emotional people who like the chaos.
Yeah, mindless, emotional people who either like the chaos or they're certainly used to it, and then they can, you can be manipulated through it.
And I do apologize to Jan. I would tease her if she were here that, you're in that class. But anybody else that's rational, logical, calm thinking, doesn't, we'll see here in a moment, watch Oprah and Dr. Phil and just well-grounded in life and busy and out working on the farm and raising the kids and doing the family, is going to go, this is nuts, I'm leaving. So all your rational people are already not even showing up. Keep going. Let's play a little bit more.
You just go in this room, you're waiting, and everyone's wondering, okay, what's going to happen, No one knows. Some people they want to get out of there like ASAP,
Oh, is that the vibe in the room? You can tell a lot of people don't want to be there?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a mixed thing. There's those people that do not want to be there. And then there's other people that are like, well, no, this is something very important that we're doing. We are participating in the legal system, I can really make a difference. And they want to be on the jury.
Now, those, of course, the second part she's talking about are the dangerous folks because they want to make a difference. They're highly tuned to what the prosecution is going to present and how the judge is going to manipulate them, right? Mm-hmm. The other angle, too, is it sounds noble, like, oh, there's a group of people that don't want to be there and all that, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they showed up, so they're already naive, and they're part of one of the 4 jurors. They at least show up. The really, really smart people don't even show up.
Well, like she'll talk about later, though, that this is the first time she had ever done jury duty because all the other times she had an excuse to get out. But this time she didn't have an excuse to get out. So I'm just saying, some people, whatever attitude, some people you have to show up or it's like you get in trouble somehow.
Nope.
What do you mean, nope?
Nope. They never prosecute you if you don't show up.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Never, ever.
Yeah.
It's kind of like liars for King County.
Sure.
If you don't want to be there, they're not going to prosecute you. And if you're willing to lie for the prosecution, you receive every single evil blessing you can possibly get. No, that's the ironic part. You're still naive. I hear what you're saying, but no.
But that's what they say.
We don't prosecute people who don't show up for jury duty.
But they say that it's considered, a misdemeanor or something.
It's considered a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
Technically, Enumclaw Detective McGraw at least committed a misdemeanor, but they don't. There is the law, and then there is the real application of the law.
Yeah.
It's like, this is against the law, but if you're of a minority or you're of this particular group, you're going to be treated much different.
Well, sure.
So I'm just letting you know, I could be wrong, and I'm sure a lawyer said, and I'm not advocating you don't show up, because that's clearly against the law to advocate one way or another. They don't want to inform jurors. So no, you will not. If you ignore that thing, fully ignore it, like don't even check the box or I don't want to, they're not going to come get you. You won't be pulled over for a speeding ticket and go, oh, sir, there's a warrant out for your arrest. You didn't show up for jury duty.
Correct, yeah.
Here's kind of my dream, right? I don't show up for jury duty and they arrest me. What's the first thing I'm going to ask for?
A jury
trial. Exactly.
Well, no, wait, that's not what you want, because then you're going to get the worthless people.
I am being facetious. It's a joke I've told myself over the years, kind of routine. Yeah. But no. I know I'm beating this to death, but no, it's a joke. The whole thing is a dog and pony show. Yeah. Look at what they pay you. Look at what they do.
Oh, yeah.
The whole thing is like, we want the stupidest people that are willing to show up, stay here, go through all these hoops. She had to come back 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
They're weeding out anybody that doesn't want to put any effort for the state.
That's the thing. Even if you do show up, the people that she's even describing who don't want to be there, all you got to do is say the right things and you're for sure going to get booted.
Oh,
if
correct.
You don't want to be, if you don't want to be there, and even if you did show up that day, you can say things to be assured that you won't end up on an actual jury. You won't have to be on a trial.
And a lot of those people are easily manipulated by flattery. They don't want to be there, right?
Sure.
But then the prosecution, it's very important that you're here.
Yeah.
It protects society.
Yeah.
The fact that you showed up, that you're sitting there, you might be whining and complaining, you're highly manipulated. You're already there.
Sure.
You already feel a sense of authority, like, I better show up because I've been summoned to jury duty.
Yeah.
And there's not a repulsion, like, I don't want to participate in that crud. Again, if God calls me to go, I'll go.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I wouldn't show up. Again, I'm too smart for jury duty. There's no way I'm going to get in there. And I say no way. Man, you'd have to be awful shrewd and innocent.
Well, you would almost, I think you mentioned earlier, you'd almost be flirting with straight up lying to actually to actually end up on the jury, because by the time they start asking the questions And I'm jumping ahead of the interview because she even says that, like, some people, you raise your little paddle, and other people, they would straight up call upon you. So if you sit there quietly and you're technically not lying, like, they could, the very likelihood is they're going to ask you a direct question, and then you're going to be honest, and then they're going to boot you.
And King County goes further than that to weed you out. And I'm jumping ahead too. When they say we're going to do an Oprah Winfrey and a Dr. Phil encounter session,
sure,
you can't fake it at that point.
Yeah, well, you can't.
So
you can't just sit there and be like, oh, yeah. I mean, it would be in your a gut reaction. You'd be like, you'd be sitting there squirming, and they'd be like, sure, why are you squirming?
You might as well. I've been waiting to get the Oprah Winfrey one, and we'll get or Oprah Winfrey. I can't even say.
Winfrey, yeah.
That's how much I watched it. Oh yeah, when I did a couple of the jury duties, they didn't go through all that encounter group. Of course, there were smaller type cases, right?
Sure, yeah.
But I can just see me in this group with Jan and that judge and we're going to do an encounter group here, and we're going to share personal details with all these people here, and with a prosecutor and a judge, and I'm going to be able to keep my cool. Like, I don't think I want an encounter group experience, and I don't want these people knowing anything, and I'm not Dr.
Because you bring up a thing I never thought of, because even if you're like, I don't want to, just the attitude of like, I don't want to share any information.
Correct.
Like, and they would call, well, why, sir? Why are you so quiet? Well, because this is crazy.
It's none of your business.
It's none of my business. I'm not gonna spill my guts like I'm on the Dr. Phil show. And then you would be weeded out, even not for saying anything.
Correct.
You know what I mean? You would just be like, this is crazy, and then you'd be, then we don't want him because he's not manipulatable.
What they're creating is groupthink,
sure,
and ensuring that group will work together and come to a conclusion for the state.
For the state, correct.
So I'm emphasizing again what you said. Anybody that's independent thinking, anybody that says, look, this is none of your business, and I don't know who these people are. Why would I want to tell them? And I'm not here for a group encounter situation to do what you want me to do. So let me qualify all of that ranting and raving, which is absolutely true, and I could probably preach this for another hour, and we're the Christians out here preaching this and warning people when they do jury duty. You know what? How about full disclosure? Okay, judge, not a problem. I want to know, since this is a woman, when do you have your period? Are you going through menopause? Are you on any other medications? Are you on any antidepressants? Have you had any abortions? I want your drug test. Same thing with the prosecutor. Who did you vote for? Who are your friends? Who do you hang with? Are you associating with anybody that's outside the actual legal profession? Do you enjoy real life with real people suffering under the laws of Washington State? Look, I want full disclosure. Weight gain, weight loss, what you've been doing, where you go, what you do for hobbies. Let's at least make it fair. Then I'll be glad to share my Bible studies, my life, who I associate with, who I don't. Not only that, how many people are volunteering who their friends are? Like, I want somebody to communicate who my friends are or what news I listen to. You have to be massively, just have a welcome sign that says manipulate me for the state the minute that they say, let's do a Dr. Phil and Oprah encounter. Right?
Yeah.
We'll still come back to this because that is a crucial turning point in this whole thing. Keep going.
What did you think? What were you there for?
What was I there for? I did not want to be on the jury.
Okay, yeah.
But I really had no reason to get out of it.
Sure.
You know, I mean, in the past I'd had reasons. You know, I had children or I was working, but I really didn't have any reasons. So
let me interrupt there. Jacob, this proves that I don't run a cult.
Why is that?
Because if she'd have said that to me, I'd go, what do you mean? You got every reason not to go. It's full of, this is what this whole podcast is about, that don't participate in this corruption, correct?
Yeah.
And she's saying, well, I didn't have any reason. Jan is far more accommodating for this kind of thing. It's why God chose her to go to jury duty. You follow what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah.
If I ran a cult, we'd all be thinking the same, but we don't think exactly the same except for the things that are in Jesus Christ.
Sure.
A little sub point. Go ahead.
Didn't really necessarily want to be on the jury, you know, because we had just had actually a bad experience in that courthouse.
Yes. And so they didn't, just to be clear too, they didn't give you, there was nothing ahead of time, because you said they didn't give you any instructions. So they didn't tell you anything. There was no packet on how to be a good juror. There was no outline of what to expect that day walking in.
No, just go to this room.
show up. So you're already just being herded around like a cow. You don't even know where to go.
I think cows know where they're going.
Okay,
Right.
all right. So go ahead. Yeah. So what happens next? You're in this room.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then they did start handing out some paperwork.
Oh, okay.
And so they ask you to fill out some personal information, your name, address, that kind of thing. Then they sent out this paperwork. They wanted you to donate your jury compensation to the new court child care program.
Jacob, hold me back. Hold me back. Did we catch that? They want a donation.
They want their money back.
They want they want it to go for the child welfare fund. It's always for the children. And let me rant and rave here, but let's get the picture here. You show up for jury duty. You're going through this cow herding process, and you're giving a stipend of a little bit of money here and there.
I don't know if it's $10 or $15 a month is what you're going to get to be a jury.
Well, or whatever. And they pay you actually gas. I've actually got the little screen clip. You can go on their website, and there's two boxes. One, you can donate the money to the court children fund. Child care center. And then you can donate to the child care center the gas money they pay you. So it's two different boxes, two different donations.
Yeah.
And on the screenshot, the word yes, like donate, is in capital letters. That they clearly, that we know that the state of Washington just lusts for every dollar, and there's not a tax they don't just lust for and go after. But again, this is highly, highly manipulative. I have to think this was done intentionally. I know the greed angle is there, but by checking those boxes, like let's say you're a person that goes, oh yeah, I want to donate. What have you just demonstrated to the state? All the prosecutor has to do is look up your name, check, and that judge, and look and go, oh, well, they donated or they didn't donate. What did you forget all the other questionnaire and the dialogue and the high sounding legal talk? What did a person just demonstrate by donating or not donating that money?
Well, if you donate, then you're easily swayed.
That's right. You're for the state. It's always for the children. It's for the state. It's for children. They don't have check a box to donate to the public defender's office because they're underfunded, right?
Correct.
Because that would send a message that what? The public defender's office is not supported or is supported by the state. I'd check the box if it went there because public defenders are always underfunded, and that's where prosecutors immediately want you to go, so they bankrupt you. They're not listing that there or giving you any choice. It's always for the children, and if you check that box, you are loudly declaring, I'm for the state, and I'm for the state protecting children. That's what you're declaring. And if you don't check the box, what are you declaring? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not for the state. That would be enough right there as a judge or an evil prosecutor to go, well, I do or do not want them. It spells everything right out front.
Yeah.
Question, Jacob.
Yeah.
It's always for the children, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Always for the children.
Always for the children.
Let me ask you a question. Are the children in Washington State safer or worse off since they've done all this child prevention stuff and taking money in these causes? Are our children more safe to be raised in a family authority home growing up?
Worse off.
To be law-abiding, to be at peace, to be content going through hormonal changes? Or are they luring our children away to be castrated, to be mutilated, to believe in all kinds of sexual perversion type things or ideology, or that white people are bad? What is really going on here? Are our children actually more safe? So anybody checking that box is approving of all the junk and the perversion that's going on that the state of Washington is imposing upon our children. They're coming in and kidnapping our children if there's any slight hint or they just make up something. There's nothing about this that you should ever check the box and say, yeah, I want the state to have more money for children.
Correct.
They undermine fathers. Divorce rates are up. Who wins in most of the time in family court? It's the woman, or it's the lying, or it's that's going on. So you're checking the box because these poor women who are in trouble with the state or their husband or whatever receive free child care. I'm assuming that's what it's going for.
Yeah, it's probably because, I don't know, but yeah, the child care would be you're a working mom, and then someone's got to watch your kids. So yeah. Oh yeah, but I mean, anytime you're giving a single dollar to the state to be like, you should look after my kids. I'm like, no, I don't care.
They are enemies of our children.
I'm not. Why would I ever? I can't say ever enough evers. Why would I ever want the state looking after my child at all in any capacity?
You need proof. Just look at the condition of Seattle and other places and the drug addiction, and goes on down the line. Really.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because they've done a great job.
Oh yeah.
They have a proven track record. We can really change people for the better. Yeah. Right.
I wish all these people would have a class action lawsuit and have a refund based, number one, and even taking it, but on the evidence that this does not benefit anybody whatsoever,
Correct.
And on any level. When I first talked to Jan after she came back from this, she's kind of filling me in, right? And not this long discussion. She got to the point of this money thing, and my mind just flipped. I go, whoa. What did you just say? Because she's not thinking anything about it.
Sure.
And I'm not disparaging her. She's not thinking anything about it. I'm going, whoa, what did they just do? And then I got fixated on that, and we just kept talking about it, and eventually, I had you do the interview, and we go from there. But this is a game changer point. If you wanted, there's so many corruptions, but if you wanted to go, give us one thing that's a corruption. Right there it is. Right there in front of your face. Donate or don't donate. We better press on. Just think how I have so many reforms in my mind that would save money, that would be cost effective, that would move things along, but it would introduce justice into the system, and they're not going to go for it. All right, let's press on.
How much do you get compensated? It's joke pay, right?
Yeah, it is. It's like, I think it was like $10, maybe $15 a day.
Okay, yeah, that's joke pay.
That's all you get, But they want you to donate it.
What is the new court child care program? As in, like what is this?
I have no idea. I'd never heard of it. I mean. In fact, right now we're trying to get some information on this child care program and to find out, how much money has been donated over the years to this program. Because you figure most jurors, they don't want their $10 a day. And so, they're going to go, okay, sure, fine. I mean, personally, I took my $10 a day.
Okay, yeah. Sure, but they're hoping. That's like the government. The taxes already paid for the courthouse and everything in it, and then you show up to supposedly, and then they still want the tiny bit of money that they're going to hand in your pocket. That just sounds like the government, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right,
okay, and they called it the child care program. So, and is it just like a checkbox? Like you just check, hey, my money will go to it, I'm good with that? Or was it more in-depth, like you had to sign away or... No, it was an easy peasy.
No,
we'll take your money.
You just put a little check in the box. Either you do or do not, and you sign it.
But they didn't explain in any ways what the money was for, other than it was for the children.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what everybody says, right? You're like, if you don't give to the children, you're a bad person. Okay, so that's weird. All right, so then
it's not weird,
what else
Jacob.
do they ask
Don't pause
on
it.
these
Keep
forms?
going.
Okay. Well, at this point, the other form that they gave you, at this point, they were just asking your name and, address, your occupation, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then they had this, they called it an anonymous questionnaire. And they said they were doing a study on jurors and their mindsets. And so they wanted you to answer all these questions about your mindset,
Jacob, do you believe anything is anonymous? I mean, within the government, they're come along saying, I'm not saying they're not tracking it, but whatever.
Well, because she's saying it was a separate piece of paper, so your personal information isn't on it. It's a separate one.
Sure. Again, it's a minor point. What they're really doing is collecting the mindset.
Oh yeah, I mean,
who's going to support the state, who's not?
Well, even. I'll take it at face value that it's supposedly anonymous, but it's still evil because they're still, regardless. I mean, Jan fills hers out and they didn't know it was Jan, but it all goes into a box and then they determine how they can weasel their will into everything.
Sure. Yeah. Or if they need to tweak something in the program to keep certain people away that actually think and would bring justice into the jury pool and who the fools that they can attract. It's a marketing ploy, and so you're trying to market certain people. Whatever. They're my occupation, whatever. It's none of their business kind of routine. Go ahead.
You answer him?
Yeah, I answered him.
So is it a separate piece of paper? How is this anonymous?
Yes.
If you're
yes.
So it's a separate piece. Not that they can't match up handwriting if they wanted, but anyways, that's a different story. So and you did fill it out.
Right, I did fill it out.
What kind of questions are they wanting to know? Do you remember?
Wow, I don't really remember. You know, but I know there were a lot of kind of psychological kind of things, like what do you think of the courts, and
Sure.
I don't.
Of course. What do you think of the I'd have to. Do you know, Jacob? Was it like fill in the blank checkbox?
I don't know.
1 to 10.
I don't know.
Really, there's a whole book. What do you think of the courts? Yeah. Can I share that with everybody here? Kind of routine. Anyway, keep going.
I remember much.
Do you remember how long it was? How was this like one piece of paper, or you were flipping it?
It was a couple pages, right.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of got the idea. It didn't say this, but I got the idea that maybe some college was doing some program on this, like gather all this data. We want to do an analysis on jurors and their mindsets.
Well, I doubt it's the college. It's more like the government. The government wants to know everything.
Let me tweak what you just said there, Jacob, and I'll just throw it out for discussion. You're wrong. It's true. The government wants to know, but they're hiring the college students, the paralegals, all the do-gooders that work for the children's court or framing lies that the prosecution can bring in. They're getting all that information, and so they have a vast wealth of knowledge on how to manipulate people, not just there, but also in the jury, especially in the jury pool. That's the whole goal here of all of this. And then, of course, as you find the state of Washington dumbing down the public education system, it gets easier and easier to find fools, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, press on. Any comments on that?
No.
Okay.
I doubt it was a college. Pretty sure it was them. So what happens next? No, go ahead. Okay, what?
Okay.
I can't help myself. I can't help myself to the whole judicial system is so corrupt to think it was a supposed college people. Anyways, go ahead. What?
Okay, so then you just wait until your name is called. So finally, I was instructed to go to a courtroom.
Okay, so wait, so you're in. I'm just because I've never been in one of these rooms. This is a big room. Would you call this a big room?
Yeah, I would.
And there's how many people are in the room? You figure?
I would say a couple hundred.
What? No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Room.
I didn't know. Okay, so this is a big room. There's a couple hundred, and the whole time it's the chaotic setting, even while you're filling out your paperwork.
Well, I mean, there's some order. You know, I mean, people are sitting there, and you're passing these papers down this aisle where you're sitting. It's like, okay, take one, pass it on, take one, pass it on.
Who comes in the room? Do they say like, hey, my name is so and so, I'm a something something?
Yes, they did have someone come in and explain a few things. They did have like this, I guess a teleprompter or something going on in the corner, that was explaining some things. Just please wait. So I guess now that I think about it, there were that instructions you could read up there. Okay, please just wait till your name is called. Be patient.
Okay, hang on just a second there, Jacob. And do you want to expound on that? I find it interesting that you really focus in on the fact that this is chaotic. Is there what is it about that kind of sticks under your crawl? Or are you just commenting on the fact?
I'm just trying to gather. If you're asking me what was my interview style, I was just trying to get as much detail as possible.
Sure, I got you. And I hear you. It's chaotic. It's interesting saying, yeah, there was a teleprompt with some instructions, right? It wasn't instructions about the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. You don't want to come to wrong decision. This is what the word evidence means. They're going to keep these people as dumb as possible. So you create this chaotic mindset going on, and then you find out who you can manipulate the best.
Sure.
Keep going.
And, be courteous, that kind of thing.
And so you're sitting there. How long did they make you wait before your name is called?
Okay, sorry to interrupt again. We were going to pause. Jacob, if you got to tell a group of people to be courteous, they don't need to be serving on a jury pool.
Sure, yeah.
Go ahead.
Wow, let's see. I think I was in there maybe about 30 minutes.
Okay, 30 minutes. Okay, so then what happens?
Okay, so then your name is called, and then you go up to this desk. You get a number. Everybody is assigned like a certain number, and then you're instructed to go to a courtroom.
Okay.
So I was given my number, and then I was instructed to go to Judge Gaines' courtroom on the 4th floor. And so I went up there, Judge Brian Gain. It was his courtroom. And so we went up to his courtroom, and again, there's 50 of us. It was a very small courtroom, and I wondered, how are we all going to get in there?
Sure.
So people went in, and they all sat down, and of course there wasn't enough room. And then the judge said, "Okay, well, everybody just go up to the jury box that are left that are still looking for seats." So we went up and I was one of the ones that went up to the jury box. And then at that point, they told us some things, about the case.
Okay.
And so this particular case was the state of Washington versus Bernard Bellaroche.
Jacob, let's pause here at the moment. She's going to start getting into the actual case here. We've kind of gone a little bit long introducing this. So much injustice, so little time. You'd think there's a holy guy going to come back and just burn it all down and start over. Go ahead and play something. If you're going to jury duty and showing up, you could take this with you. Go for it, Jacob.
Jury duty goads. Goad 1. If it's not illegal, prosecutors need to shut up. Goad 2. Plea bargains are the final word. Just say no to extortion. Yes is yes. No is no. Anything beyond is from the devil. Matthew 5:37. Goad 3. If liars for the prosecution are not punished, judges are wicked. If a ruler listens to lies, all his officials become wicked. Proverbs 29:12. Let us consider jury duty on the Consider Podcast. The Consider Podcast. www.consider.info. Where the rubber meets the road.
I'm afraid society is like the frogs in a frying pan. Have you ever heard that analogy before? It's kind of a true thing, Jacob.
Yeah.
For those that haven't, you put a frog in a frying pan and you slowly turn the heat up. The frog won't jump out because it just gets used to it. We're so used to the corruption that goes on, we don't even think about it, or it has to be so bad before you wake up. Just think of the reform that would happen when the first thing mentioned, and I didn't throw a scripture on it, we'll do it later, but if the prosecution is prosecuting that which is illegal, they shouldn't be allowed to bring up anything that is legal. I mean, that's just logical. That's just reasonable. That's fundamental law, that if they're going to accuse you of a crime, then it can only be specifically about that crime, not tattoos, not your religion, not your skin color, not how the family feels wounded or how people are hurting. Only that which is actually illegal should be brought in. Just think, trials would move forward. Of course, the prosecution would have a hard time bankrupting you so that you could actually put up a defense. It would narrow the focus of what police do. This hate crime nonsense would just go away. I won't go sidetrack. You get my point on that one, right?
Yeah.
That's just reasonable. To bring in all these emotions and these other things that these prosecutors bring in, and you show up for jury duty and that doesn't affect you, then you deserve to be on jury. That's all I got to say. You're so dumb and stupid and such an unrepentant fool. And by the way, when I use fool and dumb and stupid, I'm talking about a foolishness and a stupidity and a dumbness that you can repent of, not looking down on somebody. I was born a fool, and God has had to crucify me and change me so that I'm no longer a fool. But if you walk into a courtroom and that prosecutor and the judge is allowing anything into that courtroom that is not specifically illegal, I personally, no matter what the crime is, would vote for, I don't know how you want to word it, come to the conclusion of not guilty. I'm not supporting a system that is so far corrupt for which they refuse to change. They just go underground more and more. Can't do it. I'm not going to lose my soul and my relationship with God by participating in something that is so vile and sinister and corrupt. The other things that go on, we'll go back to that later. Let your yes be yes. Look, if prosecutors say, look, if you take this plea deal, let's say it's 4 years plea deal, right? Mm-hmm. Then that's all that crime is worth. They shouldn't be allowed to extort, and that's what it is, to come in and go, well, if you don't take our plea deal, then we're going to up it to life in prison in the electric chair and to be tortured in Guantanamo Bay and so on and so forth. Your yes is yes, your no is no. If you think it's worthy enough to go to somebody and go, here's the plea bargain agreement, you can take it or not, the prosecution should not be allowed to move on to anything else. Really, it should be the prosecution comes in with the plea bargain. The person goes, okay, I'll accept the plea bargain or I'll go for a trial based on the plea bargain. That's a right. That's a privilege. That's fundamental. Anything else deviating from that is absolutely, not only is it corruption, not only is it unlawful, not only is it unconstitutional, not only is it immoral, not only is it a violation of the Bill of Rights, it's also the damnation of prosecutor souls and the damnation of the soul of judges. Jesus says in Matthew 5:37, simply let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. They're being inspired, right? Their God is their stomach. Their glory is their shame. Because why? They worship their belly. Jacob, take us out of here.
This has been the Consider Podcast with your hosts, Timothy and Jacob, where the whole gospel message has been used to examine today's wisdom, folly, and madness. For more information, drop by www.consider.info. The Consider Podcast, examining today's wisdom, folly, and madness with the whole gospel.